When she came, she looked at the place and she saw that there was nothing. And she was very angry. And there happened to be Devjani in front of her. She said, where is my part? Then she said, Devjani said, it's all finished. She slapped Devjani. Yeah, just. She slapped Devjani. And we were not taken aback. And Devjani was also in front of everyone. There was a big crowd and she was slapped out of nothing, you know. So we came back. We narrated the incident to Bhagavan. Bhagavan was very pleased, very much pleased. And then after hearing the incident of Devjani, Bhagavan said, this is the greatest gift that you have. The greatest gift. See, a father telling to a daughter who has just received a slap, good slap in front of everyone while doing a good deed. I don't believe in any particular school of thoughts or any organized, religion or spirituality. But I am a karma yogi. You know, I am a man of work, and work is worship to me. That's a very common thing which is heard, and even I think in the West also you all like to work, and we all like to say ourselves as a karma yogi. You know, I do my work, and that's my service, and whatever it is. That's my austerity, my sadhana, and that is all. And we think that in this process that my duty is to help the world. You know, the person whom I am getting, the world as a whole I cannot help. It's not a small thing. Like beautifully said by Sri Ramakrishna, one of his devotees told that he was telling about, helping the world, and Sri Ramakrishna said he gave a very beautiful reply, that is the world really very small that you can help it? The words that he said was something like so beautiful, I cannot express, or that doesn't have a English translation, a proper translation. He said that পৃথিবীটা কি এতটুকু যে তুমি সাহায্য করবে? My dear, is the world really so small that you can help it? Who are you in relation to this huge world? Nothing. And you think that you can help it, but we think it, that whatever we are doing, we are helping the world, we are helping the world to become a better place, and these and that and so on and so forth. But the topic that I am going to discuss, this has been discussed by Swami Vivekananda, because the book is Vedanta Voice of Freedom, and the topic is Karma Yoga, and the particular topic that we are going to read is, or discuss is, we help ourselves, not the world. So before going to work or before going to plunge into any activities whatsoever, we must first bear in it our mind very clearly that it is because of ourselves, it is because that I want to help myself that I am going to do this action, whatever it is. Feeding the poor or providing, some help to the downtrodden or whatever it is not for them actually. If it is not me, someone else would come and do it. So it's not that I am going to help him or help them, rather we help ourselves. How is it? Because it seems very, ridiculous that, I am going to distribute like 500 blankets among the downtrodden in this winter, so they will be benefited. And what it is about me? I have a blanket in my house, so how is it that I am helping myself? I am not helping myself, I am helping them. But Vedanta says just the opposite. So let us see what Swami Vivekananda says. Swamiji says, our duty to others means helping others, doing good to the world. Why should we do good to the world? So helping others, doing good duty, selfless activities, that means helping others, doing good to others. Now the very primary question comes, why? Why shall I help others? Nobody said me. or I am not bound by any law to help others, but still we do. We do. Why do we do? What drives us? What is the driving factor? Which we cannot see. We see the action. We see the effect. What is the cause of it? What is the driving factor? So that I am helping others. Spending my own pocket money, I am helping others. Why is it so? So why should we do good to the world? Apparently to help the world. Apparently it is, okay, I will be distributing 500 blankets so 500 people will be benefited. That is the apparent cause. But what is the real cause? But really to help ourselves. I am not doing some good to others because of them. It is because of myself. Because I really want to help myself, that I am helping others. So, actually, though it seems apparently that I am doing something good for others, that I am helping others, but in reality, what am I doing? I am really helping myself. So this we have to be very clear. Normally what happens is that whenever there is a quarrel or something, oh, I did so many things for you, it comes out spontaneously. But actually I didn't do anything for you. What I did was for myself. Actually that is the truth. So apparently to help the world, but really to help ourselves. We should always try to help the world. That must be our motive. We must try to help the world. That should be the highest motive in us. That yes, I should try to help someone. I cannot help the world as a whole. I cannot feed all the hungry people in the world. But if there are a few in front of me, I can at least offer them food. At least to 5, if not to 5 million people. I can at least help 5 people to satisfy their hunger. And that is always good. That must be our highest motive. But if we consider well, so that is the apparent thing that we see. And that must be in us. But at the same time, Swamiji says, but if we consider well, that means if we think a bit deeply, if we sit down and if we look into ourselves, we find that the world does not require our help at all. What is it? The world does not require our help. This world was when I was not there, isn't it? Did the world die? No. And the world will be when I will not be there. So, it never required my help. That is the truth. But despite this being the fact, this being the truth, our motive must be to help someone. Why? That will come later. But if we consider well, we find that the world does not require our help at all. This world was not made that you or I should come and help it. This world was not made so that I or you will come and will help it. The Creator did not make the world for this reason. That okay, one day there will be Swami Shankarananda and he will be helping so many people. No. Then, I once read a sermon in which it was said, all this beautiful world is very good because it gives us time and opportunity to help others. Why is this world so beautiful? Swamiji said that he once read a sermon that this beautiful world is very good. Why very good? Because it gives us time and opportunity to help others. It gives us a chance to help others. But that is not the real fact. That is the apparent fact. That is the apparent reality, but not the real thing. Apparently, this is a very beautiful sentiment. Apparently, this is very beautiful. Everyone will like it. Of course, you are helping others. That's a good thing. But is it not blasphemy to say that the world needs our help? So Swamiji is now getting stronger. That what did he say? Is it not blasphemy to say that the world needs your help? That the world needs my help? because everything is the Lord Himself. How can you help the Lord? And did the Creator make someone very poor or downtrodden so that I will come one day and help? No. So it is a blasphemy on my part to think that it was made for me so that I will come and help. But this motive must be there, that yes, I will help. Because this will gradually purify me and bring me or usher in me the knowledge that in reality I cannot help the world because the world is already perfect. It is the Supreme Lord playing in each and every being, nay, in each and every particle. So when the Supreme Lord is playing in each and every particle, who am I to say that I am helping the Lord? I cannot help the Lord. That is why Swamiji says, is it not a blasphemy to say that the world needs our help? So this is the way a Vedantin thinks. The first thought that the world is beautiful because it gives us an opportunity to help others. That is how the world thinks, the average person thinks. But one with a clear mind, with a sharp clarity, will think in this way. As said by Swamiji, that, but is it not blasphemy to say that the world needs our help? We cannot deny that there is much misery in it. We cannot deny it, that there is misery. There are poor people in this winter season who are there without blankets, who are sleeping on the streets. There are people right now who are hungry, who needs food. There are. It is not a false thing. It's true. We cannot deny that there is much misery in it. To go out and help others is therefore the best thing we can do, although in the long run. So that is the first step. Like, in this lockdown and everything, when there were no jobs for many people, millions of people all over the world. So there were many young boys and girls who came together and who went out for help, collected money from their relatives and their family and friends and from the society, and they fed the people, like those who did not have food to eat and those who did not have clothes, they gave them clothes. So that was undoubtedly a good motive, undoubtedly a good thing. There is no doubt in it that this thought that I do not only think of myself, but I am thinking for the society as a whole. I am thinking for someone while I am having my food. I think for someone who at this time right now doesn't has the ability to buy this food. So to think of him, to think about him is really good. That must be the first motive, that I want to help someone. But what happens? These activities, what do? They gradually purify our mind. This is also an austerity and this is karma yoga. But where does it lead us to? That where we go and we ultimately discover that although in the long run we shall find that helping others is only helping ourselves. That actually helping others is only helping ourselves. But at the very beginning we don't understand it. Like with us even, when we were young and we just went to Bhagwan. So Bhagwan engaged us in such, activities, such welfare activities, and we fed the poor, the downtrodden, we gave clothes to them. And during that time, International Vedanta Society was not so big, not so huge organization working in different countries. We are just a local organization, a small organization. And so what did we do? We collected old clothes from everyone's house. There are some old clothes already kept. And in India, we have a system that the utensils, there are some persons vendors who will go out in the street and they will sell utensils in lieu of old clothes. They take those old clothes and they give you utensils, like maybe for a bucket they will take 3 shirts or maybe 3 saris, and they give you an utensil. So the female members of the family, they are very eager to buy that, That is, Even if they don't need it, still they will buy it. That's the so Bhagavan taught us that, you see, in everyone's house we have enough of utensils, but still we buy. So why don't we do one thing? We can, save some clothes for the poor, and we can gather them and we can distribute them. And we started that. And then we are thinking, we are doing a very good job, we are helping the poor and we are helping this, giving saris to the downtrodden females and foods to the poor and like that, But gradually he made us understand doing this is good because it is serving some purpose which is really good, selfless. But at the same time he made us understood gradually with these spiritual thoughts that it is not actually that I am helping them, but on the contrary, by the way of helping them, I am purifying myself. Actually, I am helping myself. So that is Karma Yoga. When we can come to this knowledge, when we can discover this, till the moment I think that I am helping someone, that is not a true Karma Yoga. But when that knowledge dawns in us, that actually it is not the person in front of me who is benefited, actually it is me who is benefited, actually it is not me helping him, but actually I am helping myself, that I come to know the secret of karma. And then I become a real Karma Yogi. And then when I give, still I will be giving, still I will be helping, but then there will be no feeling of a giver. Until then, I am the giver, and the person in front of me is the taker, is taking it. So there is always a difference. But when I know that I am helping myself, this difference, this disparity of the taker and the giver melts away. It goes away. And then when I give out of love. Then the feelings that come is not a superior feeling that I have and I am giving you. Then what comes is the feeling of love. I remember the first time we went out to distribute, like saris and clothes among the downtrodden. So we were all there, and these old clothes, they were all gathered from different houses of the devotees, and it was a big one, like a big whole lot. So we went to a place, and that was our first experience, first-hand experience that was. So the moment we went to that area which we chose earlier, the moment we thought that it was very big, like we had many clothes. No sooner did we open the lot, it was just like finished. Everyone came in and he wants this, he wants that. Maybe a man was pulling a sari and a woman was pulling a shirt. It was something like that because they just wanted it. They didn't have those things, so they just wanted it. And we were bewildered, what to do, what not to do. Means like, we didn't think of this. We thought we have many, so we can distribute it quietly, nicely, peacefully. And within a few minutes, the whole lot was finished. And then came an old woman. And she asked for something, and she was not so strong, so she could not push the crowd and get into it, So when she came, it's a very beautiful incident. Means when she came, she looked at the place and she saw that there was nothing. And she was very angry. And there happened to be Devjani in front of her. She said, where is my part? Then Devjani said, it's all finished. She slapped Devjani. She slapped Devjani. And we were all taken aback. And Devjani was also in front of everyone. There was a big crowd and she was slapped out of nothing, So we came back. We narrated the incident to Bhagavan. Bhagavan was very pleased, very much pleased. And then after hearing the incident of Devjani, Bhagavan said, this is the greatest gift that you have done today. The greatest gift. See, a father telling to a daughter who has just received a slap, good slap in front of everyone while doing a good deed. What we say, oh, there is no, necessity of doing it again, like we are going to do good and they are slapping us. But what did he say? See, just the way of perceiving the things, the way of seeing the things. He said, this is your greatest gift that you have got today. This slap. Remember this slap. Why? Because you will remember what people feel. You have so much. And how people are actually. So this is the lesson that Bhagavan taught us. Just see the way he sees the things. So it all depends how we see. And that is why Swamiji said that although it seems at the very beginning that we are helping others, but do it. Even though it is not fully true, it is an apparent truth, but still do it. Because this will go on purifying your mind, and a time will come when the real knowledge will dawn that it is not actually you who are helping others, it is actually you who are helping yourself. And then this difference of giver and taker will be washed away, will be gone, will melt down, and you will give then also, but it will be out of love. There will be no difference. So that is what is the essence of Vedanta. This is karma. As a boy, I had sometimes white mice. They were kept in a little box in which there were little wheels, and when the mice tries to cross the wheels turned and turned, and the mice never got anywhere. That we see, no? Like a Ferris wheel there is, and a white mice is put there and it runs. And as it runs, the wheel goes on revolving, rotating fast and fast. The faster it wants to run, the faster the wheel goes on. And after much work, the mice is there where it was. Not a single inch it could travel. But it thinks that I have traveled so much. So Swamiji says that as a boy I had some white mice. They were kept in a little box in which there were little wheels, and when the mice tried to cross the wheels turned and turned, and the mice never got anywhere. So it is with the world and our helping it. The world is where it was. The world is where it was, and it will be where it is. Like, we see it in mice. We also do it in the treadmills. We walk, but we don't travel. Yeah, we burn some calories, of course, but we don't travel. But what happens is that in the process we burn some calories and we gain health. Sometimes gaining flesh is gaining health. Sometimes losing flesh is losing fat is gaining health. It depends. The world is apparent. It's not means it's relative. So sometimes gaining weight is gaining health, sometimes losing weight is gaining health. It all depends where you and I are. So the world is also like this. It's totally relative. So what happens when we run in the treadmill? We don't travel anywhere. We are there where we started. But in the process we gain health. Similarly, we cannot help the world in that way. That okay, if I feed 500 people or 5,000 people or 5 million people, it will be of great use. Yes, of course, for a time being, for a limited period of time, it is going to help. But the world is not going to change. It will be there like that. Then what is going to happen? I am going to gain this knowledge. As in the treadmill, I gain health. Here I gain this knowledge. I gain this mental health. But the world is where it was. It will be where it is. The world does not change. we change. Now, like before coming to Bhagwan, the world we had around us was something not like this, isn't it? Now after 5 years or 10 years or some of you like 2 years or some of you like 20 years, the world is different. Now what we have. But really is the world different? The world is like it is. It was. But according to my mind, I created my environment. There are thousands of people on the street right now. But here we are not so much. Because they created their own world, we created our own world. And how do we create it? By the help of our mind. As our mind is, so do we create our world. So what we gain by this karma? We gain this knowledge that actually I am not helping anyone else, but on the contrary, I am helping myself. This world is neither good nor evil. So this is a very crucial thing. How is the world? Someone will say it's very good. And someone will say there is nothing in the world, it's very evil, very bad. So it is all based on our personal experiences. Good or bad, as I said, it's totally relative. Now this situation that we are in this corona, in this COVID-19, this situation is really bad. But you ask a pharmacist, you ask the company who who produces masks, sanitizer, they are becoming fat and so it's always relative. If there are no thieves, what will the policemen do? They will lose their jobs. So it is always relative, always. This world is neither good nor evil. It's neither good nor evil. It is how we see it, how we look at it. The world depends how we look at it. The day we are very good, like suddenly we wake up and we feel very good. Everything seems so positive around us. Everything is good, everything is bright and shiny, and like I do so many things. And the day, suppose I wake up and I don't feel like doing anything. The day seems so gloomy, I don't feel like talking, don't feel like doing anything, I don't feel like waking up from the bed, like getting up from the bed. But it's the same world, it has not changed. So, how is the world? It's neither good nor bad. Each man manufactures a world for himself. So, everyone's world is different. To this boy, his world is different. His world is now playing games in the mobile and asking friends, oh, you do this, you do that. But to us, it will be, oh, this is no. But there was a time when we were at the same age, and then we did not have, games on the mobiles, but we are playing on the street. It's the same thing. They do not play on the street, they play on the mobiles. We were playing on the streets. But now, after this age, we think, no, there is something more. You ask a man of 75, he will say something else. So, everyone manufactures their own world. Even a child like him, now he is sitting here. He is 17. He is sitting here. Now, you see other child, other young boys like 16 boys or girls of 16 or 17 years of age, they will be roaming here and there, going to any pub or something like that, going to a restaurant, having a party and all these things. So, even in the same age, they have their own world. They manufacture their own. Each man manufactures a world for himself. If a blind man thinks of the world, it is either as soft or hard or as cold or hot. Because he cannot see other things. He can feel that. Hot, cold, hard, soft, he can feel that. So for a blind man, this world is something different. For a deaf, the world is purely another thing. So this world is different for different people. For a blind it is another thing, for a deaf and dumb it's another thing. So we create our own world. We are a mass of happiness or misery. We are a mass of happiness or misery, and at times a mixture of both. We have seen that hundreds of times in our lives. What? Both the things. We have seen hundreds of miseries, we have seen hundreds of happiness. Both. As a rule, the young are optimistic and the old pessimistic. That's a rule. What I said just a few moments ago. You ask a person of 75 years of age, not Bhagwan, he will be telling just the opposite thing. But a person of 75 years of age, he will say, oh, there is nothing in the world, nothing left in it. It's so bogus and chaos and this and that. He is totally pessimistic. But with Bhagwan, it is something else, because he is just something not normal like others. Because in spite of being now running 81, he inspires a boy of 18. So it's totally something different to him. But normally to a person who is like 75, 80, you go, he will be pessimistic. And to a young boy or a girl, this world is full of hopes, full of dreams, full of so many things to do. But that same person, when he turns 75, 80, he sees all the hopes crashed, all the dreams vanish into air, and then he is a mess of pessimism. As a rule, the young are optimistic and the old pessimistic. The young have life before them. The old complain that their day is gone. Hundreds of desire which they cannot fulfill struggle in their hearts, but they don't give up. That's the thing. Because the mind is so attached to think like that, it is so attached to the desires that even though they cannot fulfill their dreams and they know that they have no more time left to fulfill, but still the desires are there. They cannot leave it, they are so much attached. This attachment can only go through spirituality. There is no other way. Both are foolish nevertheless. A young who thinks, I can do this, I can, turn over the world, like upside down and this and that, I can burn the whole world and do this, he's also foolish. And a person who is just about to exit from this world, who thinks that nothing is possible, like it's just somehow you spend it, it doesn't make any sense whatever you do. Both are foolish because they do not know the truth. Both are foolish nevertheless. Life is good or evil according to the state of mind. To a successful man, this world is so bright and you can do everything, He will say you can multiply your money in this and that way, money is flying in the air, you just have to catch it. You ask a poor person, he will say, I have tried so much, nothing came in my hand. I have tried several times, innumerable times, but nothing came. So the world depends on our state of mind. Life is good or evil according to the state of mind in which we look at it, the way we look at it. So, rectify your way of looking at the world. Gain the correct vision. Have that correct vision, the way to see the world in its reality. Not in absolute hope or not in absolute hopelessness. The way as it is. So, we have to gain that vision. We have to have that knowledge. In itself, it is neither. It is neither good nor bad. Neither hopeful nor hopeless. Fire in itself is neither good or evil. because it depends on the person who uses it. You can use a fire to cook food for thousands of people and feed them. You can use a fire to burn thousands of houses. So the fire is hardly responsible for this. Who is responsible? The mind which uses the fire. So if that mind can be controlled, if that mind can be rectified, then the fire can be used in the most appropriate way, in the most perfect way, in the best possible way. So we have to rectify our minds, our thoughts. And what is mind? Nothing but a cluster of thoughts. So we have to rectify our thoughts in this way. So the world is neither good nor bad. Rectify the main instrument which will use this world, and that is the mind. If we can rectify the mind which uses the world, then we will see the world as we speak every day, as we chant every day, Madhu Vata Ritayate Madhuksharanti Sindhava. All is so sweet. Everything is so sweet. When do we see sweetness? We see sweet only in the shops, sweet shops. But here the rishis are telling that everything in this universe is sweet. As if it's sweet pouring down, as if it's sweet raining. It's pouring down. But we don't find sweet anywhere. Why? Because we did not rectify our vision, we did not gain that knowledge which enables us to see sweetness in everything, in each and every being, in each and every particle. So karma yoga, we have to do karma yoga, we have to perform, because everyone has to do karma yoga, everyone has to do karma, because without karma we cannot stay even for a moment. You breathe, that is karma. You think, that is karma. Isn't it? So without that we cannot do. Rectify that. Rectify that. So rectify the instrument by which you use the world. Rectify the means of that instrument by which you will use this world, by which you will see this world, and that is the mind, that is our thoughts. If we can rectify them, if we can give them the proper knowledge, if that real knowledge dawns in us, then we can see the reality of the world. And what is the reality? It is Brahma. Everything is Brahma.